that, welcome again to our first webcast of 2026, hands-on AutoCAD tips, line types, and design center with, of course, our AutoCAD guru, Mr. Ryan Wunderlich. Ryan, the floor is yours.
All right, everyone. Good morning. I hope everyone's happy to be here. I know I am. So we're going to get started. We're going to talk AutoCAD tips and tricks. This is our first one. Those of you who have not been here on a webinar before or don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Wunderlich. I've got over 39 years of experience in AutoCAD and AutoCAD verticals across multiple industry segments. I'm currently one of the support team managers for our AEC team here at Imagine It. I've taught AutoCAD as a certified instructor. I also have taught Revit, InfraWorks, Civil 3D, Inventor, Vault, multitude of products. Had over 15. Kevin, if you can't hear anything, check your volume. I have over 15 years in CAD management experience, 8 years in cruise ship building. I've done 5 years of support in civil survey, landscape architecture before that. As I like to tell people, I've worked in every industry except aerospace and automotive. Those are the only two things I've never touched yet. And I put the word yet in there because I'm always curious about things. And if opportunity ever came up, I might actually take a look. I have a bachelor's in business management and a master's in organizational management. So with that, we'll talk about today's agenda. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about custom line types, process and creation, and really just understanding what's built in a line type and how we manipulate those things. Plus, I'm going to show you the tools inside of AutoCAD, not AutoCAD LT, but in AutoCAD to make custom line types very easy to create. We're going to also touch on the Design Center. If you've not ever played with Design Center, it's a really neat tool that can kind of make things go a lot faster. And then I do just have a brief introduction slide on Solution Center. So those of you that do that have contacted Imagine It Technologies that do have your software with us, you probably want to know who we are and who we are in Solution Center. And I'm going to just give you just a quick rundown of that. So with that, we're just going to get right into custom line types. So what is a line type? So inside of AutoCAD, it's a way of representing geometry with different looks to designate specific things like hidden lines, center lines, things like that. Sometimes AutoCAD doesn't have exactly what you need built in, so we have to create our own. So we're going to cover how the line type is defined and then show you some tools on how to make custom line types easy to create. What you see down here is the divide line type and what it looks like, and then there's some code underneath that starts with the letter A that kind of explains how things are going. So the first thing, since you've taught Revit, do you do tips and tricks videos like this for Revit also? Ruth, I don't do those normally. I can. We do have a group that specializes in the Revit videos more than I do. And that's a very good question. That might be just something we need to have marketing do a little more push for and make sure that we get some of those things. That's a good question. So an AutoCAD line type definition follows a specific 2-line format. So there are 2 lines that make it. So here's a breakdown of how to structure each part. So the first line right here, this is the header and description. The first line serves as the label and the preview. And it must include as a minimum the asterisk, which tells AutoCAD to start the definition, and then the line type name, which is a unique identifier for the line type, no spaces allowed. So this one just is star divide, and then a comma, and then following the comma is a description. So this is a description that shows up inside your line types when you're selecting it, and generally will give you kind of a preview. If you don't put the preview in, you don't get one. But it says a name, a text-based preview, a short description, help users identify the pattern visually in the line type load dialog. Then we get into the second line. This actually is the pattern information. So line 2, this contains the technical instructions for AutoCAD on how the line is drawn. So the alignment type A, every line type definition begins with the letter A. This is the standard alignment required by AutoCAD. And then we have the pattern values. So these numbers or information on the second line, once you have the A and the comma, define the physical appearance of the line. Everything is separated by commas, and it must start with either a 0, which is a dot, or a positive number. It cannot start with a negative. And then positive values define the length of the line segment, i.e., 0.05. And then a negative value defines the length of a space in a line type. So anything that's negative will be a gap, and anytime you have a 0, it creates a dot. So in this particular case, this line type is a dash of 0.5, a space of 0.25, a dot, a space of 0.25, a dot, and then a space of 0.25. So it looks like this: a line, a space, a dot, a space, a dot, and then the line type repeats. Pretty easy to understand. So when we're creating complex line types with things like embedded text or shapes, now we have to add additional specific parameters within brackets. These brackets define the text or the shape's content, style, scale, rotation, and positioning, horizontal and both horizontal and vertical offsets. So the key components within the brackets. So the first thing it is the text string or the shape name, the actual characters displayed, i.e. HW for hot water, BAT, B-A-T. Anything that you want as a text is in quotes, such as this. Anything that is not in quotes is a shape name. And then you have the text file or the text style or the shape file name. So this text style is used, or the shape definition, i.e. standard. So you have to have a standard text style if you're using it. Or in this case, we're referring to the LT or L-type shape.shx, which is the line type shape. And then we have a scale, which is the size of the text relative to the line type. This is the S value, which is scale. And then we have a rotation. This is the one that gets a lot of people. So you have an R, a U, or an A value. This specifies the angle of the text. R specifies a relative or tangential rotation with respect to the line direction, start to end of each point. If it's a U, it specifies whether or not the text is upright or easy to read text. The text flips over after a certain angle to remain readable. And then an A specifies an absolute rotation of the text with respect to the origin. So all text is rotated to the same angle based off the origin point. And then you have your offsets, your X and your Y value. This is the horizontal and vertical spacing relative to the line center. So with that, we're going to get into what these codes actually mean when we're building a line type. So again, we have gas underscore line, because again, we can't have spaces. And then we have gas line with spaces, and it just kind of tells you what it looks like. And then we have our A, and then we have our 0.5. So this is that first line segment at 0.5. And then we have this negative 0.2 gap right here. We have the word gas right here. It's using the standard text style, which again has to be included inside of your drawing. So if your line type references a text style that is not in the drawing, the line type will not load. If you are trying to load it, it'll just come back and tell you there's an error. And then we have our scale. So this is the overall scale of the text, which in this case is 0.1. We have U, which means, again, it's going to be upright. 0 degrees, which means it'll always be upright. And then we have an X of negative 0.1. Actually, that should have, yeah, our X is negative 0.1. So this is essentially middle left justified text. So we move that justification over 0.1. We have our Y, which is, we drop this by 0.05, which is half the height of the text right here. And then we have this negative 0.25 dash, which is, again, this is the 0.2 gap. And then we have the 0.25 gap down here. And then this is where the line type repeats. I'm a big fan of visual because that makes things make a lot more sense. That's why I put little arrows and everything so you guys can see exactly where all of these values are coming from. So these are those text rotation values. So you'll see with an R value inside your line type, the text is always rotated with the start point in the center and the end point out here. At U of 0, which is always upright, means the text will be correctly showing as upright text until you pass the 90 degree or the 270 degree, then it will flip over. And this is the absolute rotation, which you'll see this rotates to 0 degrees no matter what, which really screws up line types. Don't use it unless you absolutely need to or you have a specific purpose. So we've got some best practices. So trial and error, finding the perfect horizontal and vertical offsets is often the most challenging part. Expect to run a few test cycles in your drawing to fine tune some of the alignments. Usually I do the vertical offset is usually pretty easy. It's half the text height. Finding the correct horizontal one to center it within a gap can sometimes be a little more difficult, but you might need to fine tune some of that. So another piece is the universal style. Use a text style that exists in every drawing template, such as standard, to ensure that the line type displays correctly for all users. The big thing here is the 0 height rule. It is critical to ensure that the text style's height is set to 0 within the drawing. In other words, you go into the text style editor, whatever text style you are referencing in your line type, make sure that that is set to a 0 height. Otherwise, it will be fixed at the value you have specified. So this way, when the text style height is set to 0 within the drawing, this allows the line type code, i.e. the scale of 0.1 and the LT scale variable to control the text size dynamically rather than being locked in a fixed value. Those are the big things we need to know about that. Any questions yet? So now we're going to talk about how to build these, and we're going to talk about using some easy buttons to make this go real fast. So it is very easy to create a custom line type using some of the Express tools in AutoCAD. Make sure Express tools are installed in AutoCAD. This process doesn't work in LT. If you need to make custom line types in LT, you're going to have to do it the hard way. A simple line type is just a combination of lines and text, whereas complex line types create something like a complex shape. You can only create single line types, not double lines, so keep that in mind when you're creating these. In other words, you can't create 2 stacked lines. Those of you who use MicroStation that know that they have a double line, you can't do it in AutoCAD. So the steps are pretty simple. Make sure you're as close to 0, 0 as you can. And then make sure your drawing is set to 1-to-1 for annotation scale. So it scales properly as annotation scale or line type scale changes. Now let's say I need to create a line type for a cable TV line, which is a combination of some dash lines and a text designator, CATV. So we're going to create some lines and some text on how you want it to appear. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating, all right, I want this to be a segment of 0.1. I want there to be a gap of 0.1. I want the cable TV text to be 0.2 and kind of sketch it out. So in the above example, the cable TV is set to 0.2 units high using the standard text style, which is using Roman D. SHX is the font. This is a single line text, D text, and it's justified to, it's not justified middle center, that should be middle left. I'll fix that in the slide. It should be, yes, you can use the M line or multi-line command to get the double line though. Just understand that importing multiple lines or M line types into drawings is a little more complex. So I also have 2 lines created in the drawing in each segment gap I want. You cannot use a defined line type and have it recognize it. You actually have to draw in each segment in each gap. I've also included a 0.10 unit gap from the end of the line here to the beginning of the text on both sides. So there's approximately a 0.1 gap here. As a quick note, if you fail to generate a line type due to an error, be aware that there is a limitation of 12 line/text segments that can be included in a line type definition, and gaps count toward that limit. So in this example above, I would need to change the spacing to a 0.2 line length and a 0.2 gap to have double the length between the cable TV word. So essentially what I'm doing is this. Right, so as we come down here, I put little numbers in here so you'd see. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, etc. And you find out that the text is 13 and this is 14. That exceeds the 12. Okay, so that's the 12. So that one wouldn't work. So what I'd have to do is make a modification to that. So it would look like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The text is 7, and then we have our gap of 8. This one I can generate a line type from. So just be aware that there is a 12 character limitation. So even if I'm in that line type file and making manual changes, if you exceed 12, it will come back and tell you can't be loaded. Is there a way to make a U designated line type display properly when using a twisted D view? There is not. And Davis, that has been one of the more difficult things to do in twisted view, is to get it to show up right. Come back. Once you have this sketched out, what I typically like to do, or what I typically recommend, is draw something, or use a line type that's kind of close. So this is that gas line type here. And I kind of use this as my example. As you're going to see, this is just the whole line type. So then I can kind of sketch out and see, all right, this is what gas is doing. And then I can come in here and draw this out the way I want based off of this. Obviously, this is going to be a little bigger because I wanted it bigger. I can shrink this down by, 0.5, and I can do some manipulation, things like that. But I usually like to put in an existing line type, and then I sketch what I want based off of that existing line type that's already built in, so that I can kind of emulate what's already there. Right, so this gets real easy. We go to Express Tools, and then we go Make Line Type. It'll say, all right, we need to save this. So I'm going to save it as the CATV, and it will automatically add the .lin extension. If you need to load a line in that line type list, use this instead, or we can append that. Then it's going to ask you enter the line type name. So this is that asterisk, that first line. So you put in CATV, you can't have any spaces here, and then it's going to ask for the description. So this can contain spaces. So I'm going to use CATV and in parentheses underground. So I know that the dash line is designated this is an underground cable TV line. Then we pick a start point, and then we determine an end point. So for the starting point, you always want to click the left end point right here of the line drawn. And for the ending point, you could select either the right end point here and include the word CATV, and it will start basically that. If you pick this green end point, what it will do is it will create a double length of these, and then it will turn around where this begins, this segment begins, and this segment ends. There will be a double line segment in there. So for line types with text, usually I pick this, and then I pick the starting point right here, right at the end of that text. Then once we've specified that start point and end point, right, we pick the start point, we pick the end point, we select the left, we select all the line pieces again in here, plus the text, and then it's automatically created, loaded. You'll see it shows up here in our line types, and then I can draw a line. I can draw in this drawing with that line type, or I can take that now created .lin file and I can use that anywhere else. Let's just do a quick demonstration. All right, so I built this one. What I'm going to go ahead and do then is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just turn off this. All right, so I'm just faced with this. So again, we come up to our Express Tools. And it's right here. Hang on, I got to go back to my slides. Just grab this. Yep. Under Tools, Make Line Type. There we go. All right, I got home very late last night from a client trip, so I'm a little rough. So we click Make Line Type. I'm going to stick this in our webinar folder, and we're going to call this CATV. I'm going to hit Save. And this will be CATV. Again, this is that line type name. This is the description. Cable TV, underground. And again, I'm going to pick my starting point here, my ending point here, and I'm just going to grab these. And created and loaded. So now if I go and create a new line from here to here, and I apply that new line type, Civil TV shows up. Now I have a line type. And then if we go back and look at what we just created, in that line type file, here's 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. This is the gap it put in based off of this, so it's not quite 0.2. This isn't quite 0.2, so I might need to finagle with these numbers a little bit, but otherwise, this is exactly what we specified. The y is -1, the scale is 0.2. That's what we just built. Pretty easy. Any questions? To create custom line types the same way in Civil 3D, or is it better to create them in standard AutoCAD? That is an excellent question, Paul. I generally like to create them in basic AutoCAD just so I know the units carry across properly. You can do it in Civil 3D. The big thing about that is you have to make sure you're 1-to-1. And then when you draw it out, 1-to-1 annotation scale, and then when you draw it out, make sure you go back into the line type definition and confirm that it didn't create it, with the multiples of 10 in Civil 3D, because Civil 3D tends to work in feet, not small units. It tends to work in feet. All right. Is it possible to create custom line types for an entire organization? Yes, absolutely. So what you can do is that line type that I just created, right? This one. I can create another line type and another line type, and all I have to do is come in and copy this, and I can make one line type file that's standard. No, not the line type scale, the annotation scale. Because if anytime you're working with an annotation scale that's not 1-to-1, down here, the results you get may not be exactly what you expect. The line type scale should just be 1. Or in the case of architects, it's 0.5 because AutoCAD Architecture and AutoCAD MEP automatically reset line type scale to 0.5 for whatever reason. Now we're going to go on to some of the more complex things. Right? Sometimes we don't necessarily want text, we want a shape. Now we're going to talk about how we make a shape. So draw the shape you want. I typically create my line types and shapes inside basic AutoCAD, not a vertical. This is just simply due to units. Just understand that I like using basic AutoCAD for line types just because it's simpler. And then if you want a quote unquote fill, you actually have to hatch the object with horizontal, not vertical lines. Horizontal, because verticals don't show up in shapes correctly. And then once you hatch those things, you have to explode the hatch in order for it to be created or be picked up by the shape creation. So in this particular case, this one will create something that when printed will emulate a filled shape. So again, I usually make sure my annotation scale is set 1-to-1. I put in a line type with the shapes or text I want to use as a basis. So this is the fence 1 and fence 2 line types, just so I understand what it is already. This is fence line 1, fence line 2, and I kind of want to follow that spacing. Once you have a shape that's scaled properly and looks like what you want, now we have to make a shape from it, right? So in the Express Tools tab, we go back to the Tools sections, we click the drop down, and we go Make Shape. We browse to a location where we want to save it, and then we enter a file name that makes sense, because this file name we're going to reference again later, and then click Save. And then in the command line, enter the shape name. I typically recommend one shape per shape file. The reason why, and I try to make those the same just because it makes it easier to keep these things coordinated later. And then we enter shape resolution. In other words, 128 is usually fine. If I want a filled shape, I usually increase that number to 4096, just so that the lines that are horizontal will be as dense as possible. Specify the base point, which I usually select this point right here, where it joins the line segment to the left. Select the objects. Be sure to only select the shape pieces and not the line before, the line after, otherwise that throws off the line type. When you hit enter, the shape should now be created and present in the drawing. It'll come up like this. Once we have the shape created, now we type in the word shape and then we type in the shape name, the arrow circle in this case, to create a copy of the shape and insert it. Now you use that in your line type building using the same line type steps that we did before, but instead of text, we just put the shape in there. And then important, you will need to copy this SHX file you just created to a location that is in your AutoCAD support search paths so it can be seen. Failure to do so will cause your drawing to state that there's a missing SHX and the line type you create will fail to load. Right? So this one's pretty easy as well. So up here, I have both a filled shape and a non-filled shape, right? And these are just lines. Don't use polylines, just use lines and circles. Right? And this is just a line. And you'll see this is a hatch that I put in that I've then subsequently exploded. So again, we just come in here, we go tools, we'll make a shape. Again, I'm gonna stick this in here and this will be arrow, circle, blank. I'm gonna copy this because I like to do that. Enter the shape name, arrow, circle, blank. Enter the resolution, 128 is fine because I'm doing this. If you have complex geometry, especially things with a lot of curves, I usually like to make that 4096. Specify the base point. Select the objects, hit enter. Now I have a shape. Now I can type in shape. Now I can it'll say what shapes are loaded in the drawing, or I can just do that. And now you'll see I have a shape. And then just enter through the prompts. So now I have a shape based off of this geometry. And now I can do a line this way, 0.5. And with shapes, there's a little nuance to shapes. Generally, if you're creating a line type, you'll want to have just a small, like 0.1 segment or something. And the reason why you want to put that at the end is so that when the shape gets to an endpoint, the line type doesn't end right here, that you have something at the end that designates. Otherwise, you end up with just a symbol right at the end of the line. So usually I'll do that and I'll bring this back in, let's say 0.1. And then again, same thing. I just go in and go tools, make a line type. This one's going to be flow, direction, blank. Enter the line type name, and this is flow proposed. Proposed flow line. Pick the starting point, pick the ending point, grab these. I can come in here and again, I can draw a line and I can set that to the flow. That's what it looks like. Again, this is a very dense arrow. So we'll do the same thing here. Again, come up to tools and we'll make a shape. And I'll just call this arrow circle. Right, enter the name of the shape, and this will just be arrow circle. Enter the resolution of 4096. Then here's my base point, here's my objects. Right, now I can just do shape again. Arrow circle. And again, it's not quite blank, but it's filled in. But when I go to plot this, for example, right? So when I go to plot this to, let's say, PDF, and just going to do a window. And I'll just pick my monochrome. When I preview this, it's going to appear to be a filled circle when it's done. You cannot use solids. Shapes can only be generated from lines, arcs, and circle segments. You can use a polyline, just understand that sometimes the behavior isn't great with polylines, so I always recommend lines, circles, arcs. That's it. Can't use solid. So this is as close as you can get to a solid fill. What I had to do with that, right, is I'll come in and I'll hatch that. And so basically what I did is I'll just make a copy of this one real quick. And I did a hatch. And I wanted this to be predefined hatch. So what I typically do is I will come in here and I'll grab ANSI 31. I will set this at negative 45 degrees. And that's ANSI 31, 315. And I'll do something like, 0.01 scale. I'll pick my point like that. Then I just come back in here and explode them. Now it will print as solid. It won't display on your screen as solid, but it will print as solid. That's how we make solid filled shapes. That's the only way it can be done. Does that answer your question, John? Line type was created using style X, and style X is not in your current drawing. What happens? You can't load the line type. So if I go to line type, these are great questions, by the way. So if I go to line type and I go to load, and I'm going to browse out to where I have this. So this foam line type, I don't have the SHX. Actually, let's do this. Let's change that. We can do that. So I'm going to make that foam line type. I'm going to edit with Notepad, and you'll see this is using standard. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to replace this with L type text. So I'm going to say I'm looking for the L type text style. Just save this real quick. Now I try and load the line type through the line type dialog, and I go load, I go file, and I try to load this foam line type. It's going to tell you that there's a bad definition of foam at line 2, and it will not load it. I can load foam 2 and foam 3, but I can't load foam 1 because that text style doesn't exist. Some included line types are based on the L type SHX. How can you see what shapes are in that file? Really can't. That's a good question. So the only ones that I know for sure are in that one are all coming back to the AutoCAD or AutoCAD-LT.lin. App data %, hang on. Come in here. Autodesk, AutoCAD, port, AutoCAD.lin, Notepad. So anything that's using this L type. So I know Circ1 is in here for that. I know Box is in there for that. I know Track1 is in there for that. And I know Bat's in there for that. And Zig. And I think those are the only ones that are in that L type shape as default. Those are the same ones that have been in there for years. So anything that's in this L-type shape is only what's in the out-of-the-box AutoCAD or AutoCAD-LT.lin. If I remember right, those are the only ones in there. Zig, BAT, Track 1, Box, and Circ 1. All right. You guys have had great questions, by the way. I'm glad I can answer some of those. Now we're going to talk about the AutoCAD Design Center. It's not a highly used tool until people realize what you can do in it. So what it is and what it's used for. So the Design Center is used to browse for drawing content such as drawings or symbol libraries on your computer on a network drive. You can view the definition tables for blocks and layers in any drawing and file, insert, attach, copy, and paste those definitions into the current drawing. You can update, redefine a block definition directly from here without having to reinsert the block. You can create shortcuts to drawings or folder locations that you access frequently. You can add content such as XREFs, layouts, blocks, and hatches to a drawing. You can open drawing files in a new window. You can drag the blocks, drawings, and hatches to a tool palette for convenient access if you want, and you can copy and paste content such as layer definitions, layouts, etc. So we go type in DC or Design Center to open the palette, or via the ribbon, you go to the View tab and you click this one right here. Expand out the palettes, and you'll see right there, Design Center. So when you open up Design Center, this is what you're going to get. It's going to open up like this, and if there's a frequent place you go to, like i.e. a network drive or a network location that has a lot of drawings in it, you can right mouse click and you can set that as home. So every time you open up Design Center and you're in the Folders tab, that's where it's going to take you. It's great if you have a common file or folder you constantly need to pull from. Control 2 does also open the Design Center. So when you expand out, so you click through here. So I went to this ACDB spatial index drawing and I clicked on the blocks and I see every block that's in this drawing. I can also see any detail view styles, dim styles, layers, layouts, line types, multi-leader styles, section view styles, table styles, text styles, visual styles, and XREFs. Layout's a big one. How many of us have ever struggled with not having to go find the correct layout from your template or import it when you could open up Design Center, just go to your layouts here and drag one in. So you can either click and left mouse click and drag it onto your drawing space, or you can right mouse click and say add. A couple of things to understand what it can do. So when you're inserting a block, it can either insert a block with that name. If that block name already exists, it will use the existing. You can insert and redefine it, or you can just simply redefine that block without reinserting a new copy of it. You can insert or create other AutoCAD items like the layers, the text styles, etc. Here's the things it can't do. It can't change or alter an existing item except blocks of the same name. It can't change the properties of an existing item, so like layers and line types, etc. It'll tell you duplicate definitions or will be ignored. Now the big thing is this only works with core AutoCAD items. So some items from like AutoCAD-based verticals like Civil 3D will not be available to import via the Design Center, i.e. you can't bring styles from Civil 3D over. You can't bring architectural walls over styles over because those don't appear in Design Center. This is just all basic AutoCAD stuff. With that, we'll do a quick little demonstration. All right, so I can start brand new drawing. Actually, let me save this file, right? Right, you save this file, right? So I've got a cable TV line type and I've got a line type in here that only exists in this drawing. So I can come in here and I can go, Control 2, opens Design Center. And again, I like to be on the folders. I could also just go directly to my open drawings and I can see, oh, here's what's in here. Here's my line types. I want to load that cable TV line type in here. I want to align that. Now I have cable TV in the flow line automatically in here. I didn't have to go hunt for a drawing. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was click and drag. Right, you'll see that there's no fence line in here. I could just right mouse click and say add line type. If I have layers in here, so let's say I've got a dimensions layer, I can add that layer. Now I have a dimensions layer in here, and it inherits the properties, which means it gets inserted and it's already frozen. And yes, Jonathan, this recording will be available afterwards. Lori needs a little bit of time to get it posted, but then she'll send out the link when it's available. Here's my fence example. I can add that layer. I can add the gas example. There's a lot of cool things you can do in here. So if I have layout tabs, that's the other one that I really like, because I've used that one quite a bit. So let's come back in here. Let's go to my working data, webinar. So I'm going to come into my template here. Do I have a layout set in here? Nope, I don't have a layout set in there. Let's go to the old drawings. Let's go to this one. How? Nope, I may not have set one. Bummer. I'm trying to think if I have one that's already got a layout set up. Yep, so this one's got just layout one. Let me see if I can find one real quick. Layouts. All right, so here's my 11 by 17 layout that's coming from just a standard drawing that we use. I can right mouse click, I can add layout. Boom, 24 by 36, it's already set up. It will already be set up with however things, like if you've got an STB, whatever is set in that layout, that's what gets brought in, exactly the same. It's a faster way than going right mouse click here, go from template, go to find the drawing, click it. Yeah, add styles in Civil 3D text, dim, multi-layer. That's what Design Center is intended for. It's that quick thing. So let's say you accidentally purge something, you need to go get it back. You can use Design Center, just drag it back in real quick, and it's done. That's Design Center. And again, you've got detail views. You really won't use much of these unless you're more in the architecture, or if you've associated detail view styles in here through, I think the sheet set manager might. If you've gone the advanced sheet set and you have some detail views, I think they show up in this list. You've got dim styles. So again, I can just right mouse click and add a dim style. I've got all the layers in here. So I can go one by one. I can click on the first one. I can hold down my shift key, right? As soon as they all highlight, I can add those layers. Takes a second. Now all those layers are in here with all the colors and properties that are associated. So this is one of those great things that, this, as I call this is one of the things that is underutilized in AutoCAD. And when I show people, they go, well, I kind of like that. If you have XREFs, like if you have a common XREF that everyone uses, you can come in here and you can grab it and drag it into your drawing. All right, just click on it, click insert, it will inherit all the properties. Any other questions? So I just kind of wanted to tell you about Solution Center here at Imagine It. This is the technical support group. This is who we are and what we do. So just so you know, we take it very seriously here for support. If you have software through us, we absolutely support that. We are available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We do everything, but what I really wanted to tell you about was our team. So this is our team. On average, on the AEC team, so that's the team I manage, we have our average tenure using the products is 26 years, almost 26 and a half. And we are a little over 18 years on average supporting it. I've been supporting it 26, Paul's been supporting it 23, Jeremy's been supporting it 30. On our manufacturing side, so if you're doing manufacturing, Inventor, AutoCAD Mechanical, if it's involved in Vault, they've got 32 years, almost 33 years of experience, almost 20 3.5 years supporting it. We do have Clarity, which is a product that we sell. And then we have our system support team. So they're the ones that help do installs, set up deployments, get your software into Intune, SCCM, any of the other PDQ, any of those. We have all of that. So we have a great variety of in-depth knowledge and supported software, enabling us to swiftly diagnose and resolve issues. And we prioritize first-time resolution. We provide comprehensive documentation to prevent future occurrences. And we build relationships. I know Paul's on here. Morning, Paul. So Paul Pfluger and I have talked for years. We have a relationship. So when he calls, I know where his problems are. Where do you set the colors? You're talking the background color? Because my layout tabs are black. Right, that's in options under display. You come down here to colors. So I go to sheet / layout and I change the uniform background to black. I change my paper, I turn off my paper background so I don't change that. And that paper background gets turned off here. I uncheck both of those because I was here when Paperspace first became a thing and it was not any different than ModelSpace. Release 12, when they included Paperspace. So I'm very used to everything being black on black. So I hate the near black, right? That's the, hey, this is the great color, supposed to be nicer for the eyes. I hate that. I like true black. So my model space is set true black. My sheet and layouts are set true black. My parallel and perspective projections, I do leave different just so I know what they are. My block editor is also black. Oh, Paperspace came out with release 12, not 11, Brian. It was release 12. Go back and see my webinar from December, not a year ago, last December. I did an all about AutoCAD, the history of AutoCAD. And I think Lori's got that one recorded. It's just a nice trip down memory lane. You'll see things that you haven't seen in years, like digitizers, Leroy lettering templates. I have extraneous layers that I want to delete, but they're tied to styles that I no longer want. Is there a way to identify the styles and change the layer settings more easily than going through them one by one? Oh, Hunter, that is a great question. That's a Civil 3D question. And unfortunately, the answer is no. There's not an easy way. Unless you take a blank drawing and you drag a style into it and use it, that way you can figure out what layer it's on, but you do have to go through them one by one. There is a, hang on, let my brain catch up with me. There is a way, there's a command in Civil 3D that you can dump all the styles in the drawing to a text file. Export styles. Now you're gonna make me work. Let me think on that, Hunter, and I'll send you. There's a way to turn around and dump all of the style information into a single file. And you can work on it from there. Let's see if I've still got that. You're gonna make me think. I know there's a way to dump all the styles. It's just it's a command that you type in. It's like export styles or something, and it will dump it all into essentially a text document, which then you could do a Control F and figure out what layer you're trying to get rid of. And of course, now I don't have that. Pretty sure I still had that. I'll need to go hunting for it. Let's see, are you advanced in Lisp? I want to make a UI Lisp that can help remove looking for tools instead of just typing what I want to do and selecting objects if necessary. If you actually open up the help file, right? If you've never tried this, this is great, right? So I can come in here and I can look for a command like line. And we have to actually come down here and do, where is it? Autodesk. What I typically do here is I'll go to Help Home. If I'm looking for a command, come here to Line. So if I look at the Line command, I can click the Find right here. And it will do that. The little arrow point. Actually, you can't see it. I know this from the go-to set or doing the go-to webinar, but what it's doing is it's putting a little orange arrow right here. Hang on, I'll show you. This might capture it. So when I click on that little find, it'll take me right to the tab it's on, and it will send a little bouncing arrow right here. So you might want to try that. Okay. That's usually the easiest thing to do. Now, if you're looking for something more specific, that's something we could discuss more as a project. But yes, I've been doing Lisp since '92, and I still do it today. How do I show the properties bar that you have shown? You want this properties bar right here is what I'm assuming you're talking about. So I have a blog on this, but what you do is you type in menu bar and you set that to 1, which brings up your menu bar up here. Then you go to Tools, Toolbars, AutoCAD, and that one's the properties. As soon as you check mark something here, it will show up in your toolbar. And then once you have at least one up here, then you can right mouse click and just get there. Okay, we seem to have an issue plotting fence line types through the sheet set. Typically, we have to start Civil 3D in order to get the line types to plot correctly. Scott, that becomes a bigger question on, are you plotting sheet sets in the web, or are you plotting sheet sets? If you're plotting sheet set through the web in ACC, you have to have the SHXs uploaded to, I have a blog on that too. You have to have the SHXs used in your web.autocad.com account, then it will typically do it. If it's not printing them correctly through the sheet set, in some cases it's because if you have a custom profile, the custom profile may have pathing that you can't see, and that causes it not to plot correctly. Again, that's something we would have to look at. Let's see, I make a block of all my P and ID line types. I put that block in a palette, and all I need to do is drag the block into the drawing, and boom, all the line types look. That works too. There's nothing wrong with that, because that does work. I just like to be a little more surgical, just because I don't like to have a lot of things hanging out in my drawing that I don't need. And so unless you explode that block, you can't purge any of those extra line types. But it does make sense if you constantly are using those, that would work. And Lori, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, awesome. Betty, thank you so much for your time today. Happy Friday. Be safe, be warm, and we will see you in April. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.